Picture this. You're a single dad. Life has been tough, money is tight, but you're doing everything you can for your little girl. Tonight, you're on a blind date, nervous, hopeful. And you only have $50 in your pocket. That's all you can spare. $50 meant to cover dinner, maybe a drink, and hopefully enough to make a good impression. But what happens when, at the next table, a millionaire CEO is silently watching the entire date unfold? This is the story of Michael, a hardworking single father whose honesty, humility, and love for his daughter caught the attention of someone very unexpected. And by the end of this night, one small act of kindness would change his life forever. Michael wasn't the kind of man to complain about his struggles. He had lived through heartbreak, losing his wife far too young, and since then, raising his daughter Emma had been his world. Money was always a battle. He worked long shifts as a mechanic, sometimes taking extra jobs just to keep the lights on. Every dollar mattered. Yet despite the stress, Michael made sure Emma never felt poor in love or attention. His friends often told him, "Mike, you've given enough of yourself to everyone else. You need someone for you." After months of saying no, he finally agreed to a blind date. A coworker set him up with a woman named Sarah, sweet, kind-hearted, and down-to-earth. Michael hesitated. He hadn't dated in years, and truth be told, he was terrified of letting someone into his and Emma's little world. Still, he decided to take a chance. That Friday night, he slipped $50 from the jar he used for extras. That was all he could risk spending. It wasn't much, but it was everything he had. Michael arrived early at the restaurant, palms sweaty, heart pounding. He wore his best shirt, the one he saved for special occasions. Then Sarah walked in. She smiled warmly, instantly putting him at ease. They shook hands, sat down, and began talking. At first, everything felt natural. They laughed, shared stories, and Michael felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. But then, the waiter brought the menus, and Michael's stomach dropped. Entrees were $28, $30, even $35. Drinks were $12 each. His $50 suddenly felt like pocket change. Michael swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. Michael, gently. "Maybe we could just share a couple of appetizers? Keep it light?" Sarah, smiling. "That actually sounds perfect." Relief washed over him. They ordered a modest spread, and instead of focusing on the food, their attention turned to each other. Michael spoke about Emma, how she loved to draw, how he'd braid her hair before school, and how she was his greatest joy. His eyes lit up every time he mentioned her. Sarah was touched. She realized quickly, this wasn't a man trying to impress her with money. He was showing her his heart. Unbeknownst to Michael, at the very next table sat David Kingston. David wasn't just another diner. He was a well-known millionaire CEO, head of a successful tech company. Surrounded by associates, he was in the middle of a quiet dinner meeting. But as he glanced at Michael's table, something caught his eye. He saw Michael carefully fold the menu, his nervous glance at the prices, his subtle sigh as he calculated in his head. David noticed how Michael gently steered the evening toward simple choices, not because he was cheap, but because he was doing his best with what little he had. And more than that, David heard the way Michael spoke about his daughter. His voice carried pride, warmth, and sacrifice. In a world where wealth often blinded people to simple truths, David saw something rare, a man rich in love, even if poor in money. Without a word, David leaned toward the waiter and quietly instructed David, whispering, "Bring me their check. Add it to mine. Don't tell him until the end." The waiter nodded, and the night carried on. The date went better than Michael could have hoped. Sarah's laughter came easily, and Michael felt comfortable opening up. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't just a dad or a worker scraping by. He was simply a man enjoying someone's company. Still, in the back of his mind, the bill loomed like a storm cloud. He mentally counted the few dollars left after the meal, wondering how he'd stretch it to cover the tip. When the evening wound down, Michael straightened his shoulders. No matter the cost, it had been worth it. He signaled for the check. The waiter approached with a small folded slip of paper. Michael opened it and froze. There was no total. No amount due. Only a handwritten note. "Your meal has been taken care of. Keep being the man your daughter can look up to." Michael blinked, stunned. Michael, quietly, to Sarah. I don't understand." The waiter only smiled and slipped away. Michael looked around, searching for the mysterious benefactor. But by then, David and his associates had already left the restaurant. It wasn't about recognition. It wasn't about credit. It was simply an act of kindness from one stranger to another. Michael walked Sarah to her car, still processing what had happened. Sarah, smiling softly. "Maybe it's a sign, Michael, that good things are still ahead for you." Michael nodded, speechless but grateful. They exchanged numbers, both eager to meet again. Later that night, as Michael tucked Emma into bed, she asked, "Daddy, how was your night?" He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Baby, the world still has good people. Don't ever forget that." And as he turned off the light, a weight lifted from his shoulders. The kindness of a stranger had reminded him he wasn't invisible. His struggles were seen. His efforts mattered. David Kingston never revealed himself, never expected thanks. But his silent gesture had given Michael something more valuable than money: hope, dignity, and a renewed belief in kindness. This story is more than just a single dad, a blind date, and a generous CEO. It's about the quiet power of empathy. Michael only had $50, but what Sarah saw and what David saw was priceless. A man doing his best, guided by love for his daughter. Sometimes, the smallest gestures change the biggest parts of our lives. A paid bill, a kind word, a simple smile. So the next time you see someone struggling, remember, you never know how far your kindness might carry them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because together we can spread more of the compassion this world so desperately needs.